Hello, you lovely people. Welcome to the next mini episode of Safety Check from Green Run. And today, of course, it is none other than Farm, the glorious farm that we all love. Shame I am locked in and I cannot escape. Oh well, I guess we'll just have to rate this place. So once again, like Bus Depot, we have 3 low tier risks, but there is a different entry into the low tier risk category this time, which is the first one I'm going to mention, and it is equipment. Now there's not loads of it, but things like shovels just left in the open and some have even fallen down. It ain't good. And to make it worse, you got, I believe, the hose, I think, just lined up here as well. That, not hoe, but I don't know what that is, but still, that's a brush, I think. But they're still just left out. And the worst one is you've just got saws just left on the open here, not put away in a safe spot, just out in the open. Anyone can get to this. What if there was a child on the farm and he just picked this up and ended up hurting himself? That would not be good. So like I said, while there's not loads to worry about, there is still a slight danger there. So it is going to get a rating of 80 out of 100. All right, we can go on to the more obvious one. Excuse me, sir. I'm trying to film a video here. That's just rude. Anyway, as I was saying, the second low tier risk that we have is actually tripping hazards, because look at all the planks of wood that are on the floor here, just all over the place for you to fall over. You could really hurt yourself if you tripped over one of those. Even more planks of wood here. Seems that every building we go into, there's just wood all over the floor. And even outside, there's wood on the floor. And those stairs are broken. You could definitely trip over those and hurt yourself. Even in a house, man, there's just wood all over the floor. And the stairs are breaking apart, so you could trip over those and hurt yourself. So we are going to have to jot it down as a safety risk, because it could hurt you. And it is going to get an overall rating of 70 out of 100. All right, we will move on to our last low tier risk. And it is the hygiene of this place. Now, it's not terrible again, but there are a few little bits that we spotted, like little bits of blood here, and it mainly relates to inside the house actually, because the house is covered in flies. Look, you have flies all over this sofa, and even worse, you have flies all over the kitchen where we cook. And obviously they are here for a reason. There's probably some gone off food in these cupboards or something that are bringing all these flies in. And what the worst one is, an employee of this farm has obviously been in and tried to hide this from me. He's tried to cover up the blood in the kitchen with a rug, but he hasn't done a very good job because I've spotted it. And for that reason alone, I'm going to jot that down as a safety risk. And it's going to get an 80 out of 100. All right, so we can move on to the medium tier risks now. And the first one, of course, is got to be the falling hazard. Now, like we mentioned previously, there's holes in the barrier here, which is meant to keep you from falling, but you can fall. And of course, we know you can fall from the house on these 2 sections here, which could hurt. Now, those are the only spots for farm, so it's not going to get as high a rating as the last time, because last time you had the massive pit that you could fall into amongst other areas. So this time it's actually going to get a 50 out of 100. Oh, yay, a pistol. Just what I wanted. Anyway, next up on the list is high grade burns. These ones do hurt quite a bit, and they're gonna leave a scar if you go over it one too many times. And I definitely can't put it as a low tier risk, because look at the damage they do. I mean, look at that zombie. If he was a human right now, he'd be screaming in pain and agony. And for that reason, high grade burns is gonna get a 50 out of 100. And the only reason it hasn't got lower, like the other ones, is because there's no actual big pits of lava that you could be in. Anyway, the next one's also quite similar to ones we've had before, and it's probably going to be for most areas, is the suffocation risk. Obviously, we've spoken about this one. You can obviously suffocate with all this smoke. And to be honest, there's not many areas around this map that you can't not suffocate from the smoke. Maybe apart from like in a power station when you go underground, but apart from that, I can't think of much of the map where it's not a risk. So it's going to get a 40 out of 100. Moving on from that, we're going to talk about the vehicles. Obviously, it's a farm, so it's going to have vehicles on it, but it's going to have specific farm vehicles. Now, this one's just been left out in the middle, which isn't great. You do have some broken cars as well in places, like this little minivan here and this little car here, which has fallen to pieces. Also, can I just say, this car is smaller than this trough. So either there's a really big trough there, or there's a really small car. But there's also the likes of this tractor that's actually been put away nicely. So it's not going to get as bad a score, because some of the vehicles have been looked after. But it is still going to get a 60 out of 100. Now for our next medium tier risk, this is something I didn't notice in the first run through, but there are also chemical barrels here as well. I didn't notice this the first time around, but look, they've got the same label on them. They're the same type of chemical. So I am going to have to put it down for a chemical hazard here as well. How did I not spot this when I went through the first time? But to be fair to them, whilst there are a few barrels, they are all contained in the shed. So they aren't going to get as high a score because they're not sat in lava this time, but they are still going to get a 50 out of 100. Now, last but not least, for the farm area, the building stability, of course, has to be mentioned. Last time we mentioned the good old Leaning Tower of Pisa, but also all the little sheds and stuff. All the roofs have fallen off, which isn't good. And even in the house, we've got massive holes in the wall, which isn't good. So we are going to have to still rate it down, unfortunately, because it's not great stability, and it is going to get a 50 out of 100. But that does mean we are on to our high tier risks, and we actually have one for this map, and it's actually relating to the storage in this area, because as you can see, there are loads and loads of crates around this barn, and some of them aren't stacked up so well, like this one, and this one could be a potential risk, I guess. But I imagine once upon a time this was standing upright like this, and it's fallen over. So all I'm saying is there's a high chance that these could fall and crush you. Now luckily it is only in the shed area, which makes it a little more safe, but still not great. So it is going to have to get a rating of 30 out of 100. And that leaves us with our last risk of the farm map, and it is of course the visibility. Now at the bus depot, it wasn't actually that bad. You could see pretty well in front of you, but if I run down to the bottom here, for example, how much of farm can I really see? I can see the shining light of the mystery box on the house, and I can see that one light above the lorry. That's it. I have to move within quite close range to actually see it. So it's not terrible like the massive fog areas on the map, but it is still a risk, and it is going to get a 40 out of 100 for that reason. But luckily that is all of them for this map. Now just to recap what we had equipment with a rating of 80, tripping hazards with a rating of 70, hygiene with a rating of 80, falling with a rating of 50, high grade burns with a rating of 40, suffocation with a rating of 40, vehicles with a rating of 60, chemical hazards with a rating of 50, building stability with a rating of 50, being crushed with a rating of 30, and visibility with a rating of 40. Now again, the chemical barrels do have safety signs on them, but this is it. This is the only safety sign that we have on this whole map area. And for a farm, realistically, you should probably have some more safety signs around, like heavy machinery being used, or beware the animals, I don't know, something like that. So it is only going to get a 2.5, unlike Bus Depot that got 5, because at Bus Depot it had other warning signs as well, whereas this is just on the chemical hazard barrels. When we put all the scores together, we get a mean average of 53 out of 100, which isn't bad. But then of course you have to take off the -5 points because we got a total of 11 hazards, and then obviously we got to add the plus 2.5 because we had safety signs. And when you do that, you actually have a grand total of 50.5 out of 100. That's not a bad score if you ask me. It's better than Bus Depot, but even though it's better than Bus Depot, it is still not quite as good as Ascension. It still just falls short, with Ascension being 53, I believe it was. So it is 2.5 points off overtaking Ascension. But either way, it's in the at-risk category. So not a terrible score, all things considering. Having said that, we now get to move on to our final map of the mini-series, which is of course the town area. Now, I have a feeling town will probably be the least safe out of the lot, purely because of the amount of lava that's around, but I could be wrong, and of course we're going to find that out in the next episode. So if you have enjoyed, obviously make sure to leave a like, and I shall see you all in the next video. But until then, stay safe.